The Bible tells us in Revelation that in the last days there will be 10 kings that arise. We see that in Revelation 17. We're told that the Antichrist will overthrow and/or kill 3 of them. We're also told that these kings have not yet received a kingdom, implying that they will. That then takes us to Daniel's statue, which prophesied 5 major kingdoms that will exist during man's rule. At the end we have Rome, and then the revived Roman Empire that the Antichrist will briefly rule the world from. Let's start with the legs of iron. Iron represented the strength of Rome. The 2 legs were a prophecy that Rome would split into 2 parts, which it did. It split into the Eastern and Western empires. Then we have 2 feet, which is something different, and tells us that there will be a revived Roman Empire that will be the last empire of man. This is an outgrowth of the legs, and just like the legs, it will have 2 centers of power, the East and the West. It will also have some of the iron, but that iron will be mixed with clay. There is a lot of theories about that, and it would need its own podcast. It's also not the point here. What I want to point out is the last feature of this kingdom, the 10 toes. The 10 toes tell us this kingdom will start out as 2 parts, but will at some point turn into 10 parts, or 10 regions. I believe this is also why the Bible points out that the kings have not yet received their kingdom. They have to wait for the 10 regions. Here's the thing, and it is a very, very big thing. The process of setting up this final kingdom has already begun. We already have the UN adopting the resolution that makes it the global government, and now the process for setting up the regions has just begun. The crazy thing is, we've all seen it. We just didn't know what we were seeing. And contrary to the insane media, Europe is not only on board with this, but they have their own agenda, and they want to team up with America, which will give birth to the 2 centers of power, which will later turn into the global government with a world divided into 10 regions. Real quick, I do want to state that neither Trump nor anyone else in this podcast that is named is the Antichrist. None of them fit the biblical requirements of who the Antichrist is. There is a world leader out there that does fit every criteria, but we don't know if he is indeed the Antichrist, and we won't know until we're seeing it unfold from heaven. I haven't really talked much about this person, and I don't plan to, because like I said, we just don't know for certain. If it is something you would like me to lay out the facts about in a future podcast, let us know. But I'm not going to get into any of that here, and as of right now, I really don't have any future plans to either. Also, I don't believe that Trump is secretly in league with anything evil. I think he's trying to do what he thinks is best for America, and from that perspective, it does make sense. So, with that said, let's look at what's going on right now, because this really is happening. When Trump took office, one of the first things he started talking about was making Canada the 51st state. All of us, including myself, thought this was a negotiation strategy, the art of the deal. Turns out he's as serious as it gets, and he's currently taking actions to bring about this very thing.
In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, the great. Hey, how good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great one. But we have, I know many people from Canada that are good friends of mine. But, you know, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they give. We do it because we want to be helpful. But it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your own country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect. as a great and cherished state, keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states, maybe our greatest state. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. And we have to do this. I'm sorry, we have to do this, yes. I don't mean China. I mean anybody, any country, Canada. Nobody knows that Canada's charging our dairy farmers. They have 270% tariffs. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. They have up to 400%. They have a couple of tariffs at 400%. Nobody knows that. Nobody talks about that. And remember, with Canada, we don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything from Canada. And yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that.
I've heard you say this in all of the talk about Canada becoming the 51st state. Are you concerned that if they became the 51st state, they would be a very, very blue state? Very, very big and very, very blue.
No, there might be, but it would, you know, you have that artificial line that goes, that straight artificial, that looked like it was drawn by a ruler. Somebody with I don't mean a ruler like a king, I mean like a ruler, this way. And it's just an artificial line that was drawn in the sand or in the ice. And you know, and can I tell you, Peter, just you add that to this country, what a beautiful landmass, the most beautiful landmass anywhere in the world. And it was just cut off for whatever reason.
Sources are telling NBC News today that Trump's aides believe that he is serious about his desire, he's vocalized it, to make Canada the 51st state.
There were some that thought initially that President Trump during the transition was mocking Canada by suggesting they'd be the 51st state. But there has been no indication that he is anything but serious about this. And the actions that he has taken thus far in the first month and a half of his administration have been attempts that effectively weaken the Canadian economy. This is, for the United States, clearly a different approach to foreign policy, one that the president clearly intends to turn the United States toward expansionism and towards new manifest destiny that would take on one of our longtime key allies and partners in Canada.
Maybe it's just human nature not to believe that change this big is actually in the process of happening. But it is. And that's just the start. Trump is also dead serious about annexing Greenland.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it. We will keep you safe. We will make you rich, and together we will take Greenland to heights like you have never thought possible before. It's a very small population, but very, very large piece of land and very, very important for military security. This is friendliness, not provocation. We're dealing with a lot of people from Greenland that would like to see something happen with respect to their being properly protected and properly taken care of. They're calling us, we're not calling them. And we were invited over there, and I thought it would be I have great respect for the wife of our of our great vice president. I think she's she's a brilliant woman. She's a very nice woman, and she loves the concept of Greenland. And so she's going there, and I think Marco's going there, and some others are going there. But we've been invited, and they really like the idea because they have been somewhat abandoned, as you know. They haven't been taken good care of. And I think Greenland's going to be something that maybe is in our future. I think it's important. It's important from the standpoint of international security. And if you look at the ships outside of Greenland, you have Russia, you have China, you have lots of different people and lots of different places, and it cannot go on the way it is. It's not going to go on the way it is. I'll make a statement. It's not going to happen.
I would be willing to bet that the gears are turning in your mind right now because you cannot overstate the prophetical implications to this. In fact, there is no implication. This is prophecy playing out, and what I've shown you so far is not the most amazing part of this.
Right after being inaugurated in 2025, President Trump began saying that Canada will become the 51st state.
I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. Canada would be great as our cherished 51st state. You wouldn't have to worry about borders. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. Canada was meant to be the 51st state. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. We certainly don't want their automobiles. They make a lot of millions of automobiles are sent in. I'd rather have them made in Michigan. I'd rather have them made in South Carolina or any one of our...
You're tougher with Canada than you are with some of our biggest adversaries.
Only because it's meant to be our 51st state.
And on February 27th, the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, met with President Donald Trump at the White House and presented him with an invitation from King Charles for a state visit.
It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know.
He is a great gentleman, a great, great gentleman. Well, that is really nice. I must make sure his signature's on that. Otherwise, it's not quite as meaningful. It is, and that's quite a signature, isn't it? Beautiful. He's a beautiful man, a wonderful man, and we appreciate it. I've gotten to know him very well, actually. First term and now second term. Perhaps you'd like to say what that very important paragraph...
Yes, so this is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. And I think that just symbolises the strength of the relationship between us. So this is a very special letter. I think the last state visit was a tremendous success.
It was.
His Majesty the King wants to make this even better than that. So this is truly historic. What I haven't got yet is your answer. I do need to.
The answer is yes. On behalf of our wonderful First Lady, Melania, and myself, the answer is yes, and we look forward to being there and honoring the King and honoring really your country. Your country is a fantastic country, and it'll be our honor to be there. Thank you.
On March 20th, The Sun published an article stating that King Charles will reportedly make a secret offer to Donald Trump during his state visit that will make the USA an associate member of the Commonwealth. Trump posted this article on his Truth Social network and replied, "I love King Charles. Sounds good to me."
Europe is not only on board with what Trump is doing, but they are green-lighting it and about to set up their own sphere of power. And the two are just days away from being economically joined together. The 2 feet, or the 2 temporary centers of power, are being put in place right now. And just as the old infomercials would say, but wait, there's more.
On your second point, I tend to share your views. Nature doesn't like vacuum. And we started working on the digital euro way back. Actually, when I started my term 5.5 years ago. And I'm not claiming, parentality on the digital euro because my colleague Benoît Cœuré had already committed a speech on this matter before I arrived. But I certainly carried on with that project, and subsequently Fabio Panetta on the board and then Piero Cipollone, who has replaced Fabio, have taken the lead together with a very, very good team which is focused on accelerating the pace and hopefully campaigning enough with all the stakeholders, meaning European Parliament, meaning European Council, meaning European Commission, so that we can eventually, not put to bed, but put to reality this digital euro. The deadline for us is going to be October of 25, and we are getting ready for that deadline, but we will not be able to move unless the other parties, the stakeholders, as I call them, Commission, Council, and Parliament, actually complete the legislative process, without which we will not be able to move. And I think it is critically important, and it seems to the agnostic or the skeptics, it seems to be more relevant and more of an imperative now than ever before.
I just left the room where we had the negotiations about the digital identity, and I have bad news. The Member States and the European Parliament came to an agreement. It means that probably not far from now, the digital identity will be a fact in the European Union. Right after this agreement, Commissioner Breton said, now we have the digital identity wallet, we have to put something in it. And what he meant was the digital euro, also known as the central bank digital currency. And this is a very bad development. They always promise us not to make this connection. And even a lot of experts, privacy experts and security experts, warned also last week this is a very bad idea for our privacy and our freedom.
By October this year, Europe will have CBDCs and digital IDs and all that it entails. They are not alone. Ever wonder why the government's suddenly so curious about Fort Knox? Well, it looks like in some form it's going to be exchanged for Bitcoin. It looks like the second foot is going to have Bitcoin as its CBDC. Back in 2023, we talked about the plan that the IMF and the World Economic Forum has for this. The idea was that it would start out with each nation having their own version of CBDC, but they would all be controlled by the IMF, which, of course, answers to the World Economic Forum. But they would all eventually be replaced by the Unicoin. This sounds an awful lot like that blueprint. I think Bitcoin is Trump's way of switching to a digital currency because they are going to have to, but at the same time not switching to something that gives the World Economic Forum control of the U.S., which until the 2 feet transitions into the 10 toes, that will probably work. This does make me curious as to the role of the Antichrist in all of this and what he is up to. But far more than that, this absolutely raises questions about the timing of all of this and the rapture. There are some conclusions we can draw from this. I don't know how accurate those conclusions are, but they are there. However, the most important thing to the timing of the rapture is Israel. In the next podcast or two, I plan on talking about this. We're going to be doing a podcast that may be broken up into multiple ones. I'm not sure just yet. We're going to be covering the rapture. However, this isn't going to be a podcast covering the basic information that we all know. It's going to be a podcast for you. We're going to look at the who and when. When it comes to the fact that like the rapture is indeed in the Bible, it's called the harpazo. And how we know for certain it's a pre-trib rapture, I'm just going to briefly mention those. The reason is because we already have detailed information on that, and so does everyone else. There is really nothing to say about that which you don't already know. What I want to focus on is the who and the when. More to the point, what does the Bible say about that? What does the Bible say about who goes in the rapture? Does the Bible tell us anything about what will be going on when the rapture happens? And what does that tell us in the right here and now? The Bible has very detailed information about these things, and that information may be very surprising to many. And please don't jump to a conclusion here. I'm not going to take Bible verses out of context and cobble them together to make some vague point. We're going to look at exactly what the Bible says, in context and without bias. So please tune in for that.